Hello everyone, my name is Ifia, the blogger behind Eat with Ifia, and today I have a special holiday time Ghanaian recipe for you. We are going to be making a special type of melon seed soup called Wrewre, and we're going to be making it with some fufu. If you want to learn more about holiday meals and traditional Ghanaian / West African ingredients, make sure to keep watching. Okay, so in Ghana we have two different types of melon seeds that we use. This is the one most people know. This is akatwa in tree. They also call it agushi, but a lot of people know it because of the Nigerian term, which is egusi. This is going to be the subject of our meal today. This is Wrewre seeds or neri seeds in northern Ghana. People call them a muskmelon seed, and if you Google muskmelon, you will see cantaloupe or honeydew. While you could potentially use those seeds, in Ghana, when we grow these melons, we're growing them for the seeds, not for the fruit. So this one is actually a very, very small melon that is used to produce a ton of seeds. And likewise with the akatwa one. These are the same family as watermelon. They're like the ancient cousins of the prehistoric watermelon. Watermelon was eventually bred for its juicy fruit, similar to cantaloupe and honeydew, but these ones on the continent, and there are many, many more, are really essential for their seeds. So we're going to be cooking with this today, but this, if you want recipes for kontomire stew or egusi soup, a popular Nigerian soup, you'll be using this. This you can find in a lot of African stores. They either sell it as the whole seeds here, or you will also get it as a paste. If you get the paste, you just basically cook it like granite soup. But yeah, the paste wouldn't work for some of the northern style dishes, so it's always good to have these on hand. So I'm going to be making it from scratch with this. Substitutions, that's a very, very good question. These are really hard to substitute. They have a very distinct nutty flavor. I can imagine that if you use sunflower seeds, you can get something kind of similar. But the reason why we prepare it the way we prepare is because of the husk. This is post-editing Ifia here. So my mother explained that the husk is important because we are going to be roasting the seeds. The husk could burn as we are roasting. However, the inside is still left intact. Once it's blended and strained out, you get the essence of the flavor. And so any burnt flavor that is on the husk can be gotten rid of. I don't know whether this is 100% true because you're still going to be blending everything together, but I'm just communicating what I've been told. So we will blend and strain it because of the husk. I'm not sure if that's the case with sunflower seeds. Alternatively, you can just also make granite soup. That's our little ingredient lesson. Let's get to cooking. So we are going to toast this. It's going to take a while to toast, but essentially what we are waiting for is for it to brown and then it will start to pop like popcorn. So make sure to keep stirring. Once it starts to pop incredibly vigorously, then we'll take it off the heat because there's still going to be some residual heat that will roast the melon seeds. I have my recipe here on the side just to make sure that it is as accurate as what I have on the blog. And per usual, all my recipes will be available linked below to my blog post, which will give you some more information about botanical stuff that I explained at the beginning of the video. Okay, we are all done roasting our melon seeds. I'm going to turn off the gas stove now, and then I will take this off the heat. It will continue to roast, but it was popping a little bit. I wouldn't recommend doing this in the oven because you don't have as much control. And once it starts popping, you can just get everywhere in your oven. So it's always better to just do it on the stove where you have more control of what you're doing. So the recipe says we'll be blending this with 4 cups of water. Okay. Okay, let's go and blend it. Okay, let us strain our milk. Oh, it smells so good. It almost smells like peanuts, but not really. I'll add another 3 cups of water in here. Use it to strain that some more. So traditionally they would pound the seeds in a mortar and pestle, not the same one that we use for fufu, but a slender one. Depending on how well it's pounded, you can just add the water and go from there. But for extra smooth, once it's pounded, they add a little bit of water and then they grind it in the earthenware. So it is a lot of work. That is why some things like this are reserved for special occasions, because it's so much work. You can't be just getting up to do Wrewre soup every single day. But now that we live in a modern world with access to high-speed blenders, you don't have to go through that trouble. Just roast, blend, strain. And the reason why we are straining it is because of the tough outer shell. I actually went back and used some of the water in here and re-blended it again, just so I can make sure I've extracted as much as possible. Okay, and we are all done. Clean my surfaces. It smells amazing. Okay. Now we have the silky smooth milk. I am going to let it boil for about 20 minutes. So we are going to boil this on the stove without anything, just to ensure that it doesn't coagulate. Our milk is boiling, it's kind of frothing. If you curdle the soup, you're actually making a northern Ghanaian soup called neri soup, where the milk is kind of curdled like scrambled eggs. It's one of my favorite northern style soups. Very hard to find a recipe online, but don't worry, I'll be putting it in my cookbook, which I don't have a date of release yet, but I'm too lazy to bring out my fan. So we're gonna put my 1, 2, and then I'll cut this in half. Dried mushrooms. I'm not going to put the ginger or the pepper in here because I don't want to lose it in the soup. I'll let this cook for about 10 minutes for the skins to fully come off the tomatoes. Traditionally, a lot of these soups were not heavily seasoned. Most of them would be made, like Christmas time, they will use one whole chicken for like 30 people. But usually it's just dried fish, momone, tomato, onion, garlic, ginger. Nothing too fancy. A lot of the flavor comes from the ingredients themselves. I didn't fully wash the blender because I knew we were going to use it again. Try and not get any mushrooms in the blender. Tomato. Oh, the onions are fully broken apart. So just get that in. Maybe I recommend not using a small onion and not cutting it in half. My onion is a little bit bigger. So okay, I think I got all of my onions out. Okay. I'm adding a ginger and then some scotch bonnet pepper that will be blended and strained back into the pot. Okay, let's add this in. You don't have to strain it, but for me, for nut and seed-based soups, I try to strain it because they tend to thicken more than something like light soup, which you don't need to strain. So this technique of boiling these veggies, and I don't know where it came from, but you'll definitely see it also in Ivorian cooking because we share so many ethnic groups between the two countries. When they are making their soups, you will often see very similar cooking techniques. It smells so good. Oh my goodness, it smells delectable. So the soup is now boiling. It's going to take a while to cook. My recipe is telling me that remove blended everything. I've let it come to a boil. Then I'm going to add some seasoning cube and some spices. The recipe calls for curry powder, but I think over the years I've been leaning more and more into indigenous spices. So I'm going to add some prekese and some huentia. They're traditional West African spices that make things smell and taste good. So why not? To improve the flavor, I'm going to roast my prekese. And bring our soup back on. It's a little crispy, But now I'm going to give it a good wash and put it back in the soup. When you roast it a little bit, it becomes soft. It's actually a fruit. In English, we call it Aden fruit, but in Tree, we call it prekese. Let's add my better than bouillon paste. This soup is going to smell so good with the prekese. Okay. These are grains of celery. We call them wentia in Tree. They're going in the soup too. If you crack these open, the soup will be bitter. So I don't use much and I keep them whole. And I'm gonna just let this simmer for about 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Then I'll put the tofu in there. While that's working, I'm gonna work on my mushrooms. My soup has been boiling for a bit. You can already tell that it is getting there. You want oils to start to settle at the top and you want the foam to reduce. I did not make too much soup. It's already really creamy, very creamy. For my protein sources, I am using a mixture of tofu that I air fried and some lion's mane. Traditionally, I'll use oyster mushroom, but I have been wanting to try lion's mane for so long. And what I did was that I fried this in a little bit of groundnut roasted peanut oil, or what we call groundnut oil, and some salt. And the tofu is just air fried, no oil, nothing. In here. Oh. Rather than that, I'll just use my hands to add them in there. Okay, I'm gonna leave one lion's mane for me to snack on because they're actually really good. They have a nice flavor. Okay, our soup is very creamy. I think it's definitely on the thicker side, so I'm gonna add some water just to thin it out a little bit, and then I'll add some extra salt. We're just going to let this soup boil until I can tell that it's ready. As I've added these new ingredients, more foam will come on. Less foam, the oil will start to sit at the top, and that is how I know that my soup is ready. But yeah, this is our Christmas soup. Very, very nice. I'll let the soup cook and I will not make the fufu until my mom comes back. I will just go about my usual day, but when I'm ready to make the fufu, I will be sharing that process with you. A little bit. I can't share all my secrets. So our soup is pretty much ready. As you can see, there are all these oil streaks that are starting to form at the top. Because I don't eat meat, it's not a lot of oil that settles to the top. But because there is some oil content in the seeds, you'll start to see it separate to the top. As it cools down, it will thicken and there will be more oil that settles on the top. But this is our soup and it's ready, and I'm going to set this aside while I wait for my mother, and then we will make the fufu. We are coming to make our fufu. We are using Mama's Choice today. There's so many different brands. I like this brand. Chop Away works really well if you want something quick. In Ghana, we have two types of fufu, plantain and cocoyam. Even if we're pounding it traditionally, we will still add cassava in there. The cassava adds a really nice texture to the fufu. In addition to the texture, it makes things supple and soft. Now, when you are trying to do box fufu, you're not going to get the exact same taste, but they are trying to replicate the texture as much as possible. If you look at the ingredients list, they have cassava, plantain, and potato, because just cassava flour is not going to give you the right texture. So they add potato in there, which is also a starchy root vegetable, and that's what's going to give you the texture that we are looking for. First thing that I always do is to check the directions. It's the same 2 parts of water to boil, blah 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 blah, 10 to 12 minutes. That's the most important thing that you need to do. How long it's going to cook for. The instructions sometimes can be difficult. Sometimes they don't give you enough details, so I just come straight to how long it's going to cook. That gives me an idea of how long this thing will cook. Some people make this in the microwave. I don't want to, so we'll make this on the stovetop. So we have 1 cup to 2 2/3 cup of water. That's the ratio that we have decided works. Everyone has their own ratio, but I wanted something that can work across all brands. Starting with warm water means that you don't start from scratch, and it can really help with the texture rather than starting from cold. Some of these products tell you to start with boiling water. Well, that's a good idea. If you are very new to it, I don't recommend it because it becomes lumpy, and if you don't have a lot of strength, you will be eating lumpy fufu. We don't need any salt for this. Let's get started. What I have here is a benkuta. This is the traditional stick that we use to make vanku. Traditionally, we are pounding fufu, so this is not what you are using. In the diaspora, this is the best that we can do. While this is coming to a boil, let me go and reheat my soup. So it's going to go from silky smooth to very lumpy, and then you can do the job that is required of you when it comes to making fufu. The reason why I prefer a sticking pot compared to a non-stick pot is because regardless of whether it's non-stick or stainless steel, the bottom will bend. Now, if it is non-stick, as you are making it, it will come and sit inside the fufu, and then it becomes all crusty, and that's no good. So that's why we are using a stainless steel. Is good. Either way, you have to soak it and then wash it. So our fufu has come together very nicely. Now, when we went to look back and looked at the direction where it says 10 minutes, it is going to take about 10 minutes for it to cook. We are about maybe 2 or 3 minutes into the cooking process. We'll just let it cook. It's also a little bit raw. It's quite raw. So don't just see that, oh, it has come together. Instant fufu is ready. Some of them are like that, like choppy way. But mama's this requires some time and a lot of arm strength. As you can see, what I'm doing is kneading. So if you read a lot of these packages, they'll tell you knead the fufu. I know some people think kneading requires your hands. The tree where there's woka fufu, and which technically also means you are driving the fufu. Yes, I know that it has been here. So we are trying to avoid that location. There are two ways that you can hold it. You can hold it this way if you have a little more forehand strength, or you can hold it this way if you really want to engage your bicep. To each their own. I alternate just depending on how tired I am. Also, if it is feeling a little bit heavy, you can add more water, but I actually recommend waiting because as this thing cooks, it will get softer. Some people blend raw plantain or cooked plantain as part of this to add a plantain flavor. I don't personally like that. So if I'm going to use the raw plantain, then I use raw cassava and do a fufu like that. If I'm going to use this flour, then I will just use it as is. And as you are making these things, it's always a good idea to keep the size of your pot clean. Oh, it has just softened up so much. So much. See, that's what patience is all about. Okay, it looks like our fufu is ready. It is soft, it is supple, it has no lumps, and it's ready. It's just the two of us, so I didn't make too much. And here, everything needs to be wet. Otherwise, things will stick on each other. Okay, I'm going to soak this in water. So you take from the corners and you bring it in and you add some more water at the bottom. You take from the corners. People also use the eta to kind of bring everything together, but that's not necessary. Again, your hands, bring everything in the middle till you get a nice oval shape. It's hot, so again, wet hands is what really helps. Oh. And that is our fufu for you. It's nice and supple. I will serve it in our bowls. Oh, I forgot to put water. Oh, much better. There we go. Nice and delicious. I'll give this to my mother. And this thing, as you see, is absorbing water. So keep it well moisturized. If that's the right word. This is our soup. Oh, so luscious. Let's So I've added some okra in here as to help us, swallow the food properly. And yeah, so that is our fufu. A little lion's mane mushroom. Delicious.